Wednesday, October 22nd, and this is your weekly TNM Sports podcast. TNM Sports, just a couple brothers hanging out, talking about all things in sports. So this week, we're fresh off of our World Series preview on the 10-year anniversary of the Boston Red Sox completing the largest comeback in MLB postseason history. We're looking at NFL Week 7. We're looking at college football, a couple big games from this past week, and also kind of previewing some games to watch this upcoming week. And we're taking a brief look at World Series Game 1. And, you also, like every week, you'll get our NFL picks. So first off, let's talk about the NFL. And like we start every show out, let's talk about those Carolina Panthers. They seem to just toy with your emotions every single week, coming off of a brutal loss, 38-17 up in Lambeau. The Packers always seem to give the Panthers a fit, and Aaron Rodgers did just that. They started scoring early, they scored often, and the biggest question to me so far with this Panthers team is on the defensive side. I mean, the offense can improve as soon as all the running backs get healthy and that running game can be reestablished, because I think early in the games, it takes the offense a little bit of time to get rolling, and I think that's because you don't have a running back there that's consistent and that can just come in and pound the defense, so the defense is automatically dropping 7 and 8 guys into coverage because they know the Panthers are going to be having to sling the ball around. But Matt, what is the biggest question that you have about this Panthers team after this big loss?
Well, I'm with you on that. It's the defense. You said it. The offense has room for improvement. They still have to do better. But this defense is just, you wonder why they are so bad. They're 22nd in the league in passing yards allowed, 26th in the league in rushing yards allowed. They're giving up 137 yards on the ground this year. I don't know the exact number that they gave up last year, but I would suspect it was significantly less. They've given up 30 points in 4 of the last 5 games, something that you saw maybe once or twice last year, all year long. They've given up, I think it said 7 50-plus yard plays where they gave up 4 all of last year, so they gave up 7 in the past 7 games where they gave up 4 last year. That's tough. But for the it's not all the defense's fault, obviously, and for the offense, Cam has showed that it takes him a while to get going, and that's something that he needs to work on. Once he gets in his groove, he's pretty good, but he's slow getting going. Those first few drives, they're not really able to produce anything, especially with no running backs. So you turn around after the first few drives, and it's 21-0, and after that, you get just discouraged. I mean, you look at the scoreboard. I know you played football before. I played it when I was little, and even then, you look at the scoreboard, it's 21-0. You just kind of give up, and that's what I think the Panthers did. I think they just kind of gave up. They scored some touchdown in garbage time and kind of made it look kind of better than it was. But ultimately, it was just a team loss where they didn't look good. They didn't play good on either side of the ball. More specifically in the first quarter, and we've talked about it before, those starts, they got to get off to better starts.
Yeah, for sure. There's not very many teams that are built to overcome a 21-point deficit. There's only a couple of quarterbacks or a couple of teams that really have that quick strike offense. You think of Denver and New England when they're on their game. Green Bay, New Orleans when they're playing their game. The Panthers aren't built that way. Like I've said before, I'll say it again. The Panthers are built to play hard-nosed defense, run the ball well, and have Cam more or less manage the game. Cam's showing us that he's developing into a better pocket passer, and I think long-term that's going to be very beneficial for the Panthers if they can get these defensive questions ironed out. And I think that the biggest question on the defensive side for me is that the fact that they're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. I think, again, sacks across the board are down. I think Seattle as well, they're not getting, they led the league in sacks last year, and they're second to last in sacks this year. So I don't think that aspect is necessarily just the Panthers. I think that's across the board. But, I feel like a broken record saying this, you got to miss Greg Hardy there. That takes some of the pressure off Charles Johnson. That takes the pressure off of Kwan Short. That takes the pressure off of Star Latuile, and the Panthers just have to play good, sound, gap control defense, and try and get more pressure on the quarterback. Because when they're not getting this pressure on the quarterback, they're having to blitz. And when they're having to blitz, you're putting your secondary in man coverage. And when you're doing that, that's exposing the obvious weakness on that team. They've made some moves to improve their secondary. They went out and got Decoud. They went out and got Roman Harper. But when you're injured at cornerback and you lost good players like Melvin White and Captain Munnerlyn, who at the time I was a really tough critic on, you've got to be able to drop into some zones and to run some 2-man high and stuff like that, and they can't do that while they're blitzing, having to blitz so much just to even get any remote pressure on the team. One area the Panthers did make a move this week. They got rid of longtime Panther Charles Godfrey. He's just not really seemed like he's been the same player this year. And I guess if you can take any bright spot from this week's loss, Panthers are still in first place, Matt.
Yeah, that's the good thing, but you can't be satisfied with that the way they're playing. I mean, it's good to be in first. It always is, especially after 7 weeks. I mean, we're almost halfway through the season and they're in first place. Season right now, they'd win the division, and I think this division's just gonna go to whoever starts playing like they can play first. I think the Panthers are better than they're playing right now, and I also think the Saints are better than they're playing right now. So who gets it going first? Is it going to be the Saints? Is it going to be the Panthers? And that's something that we'll find out in the short weeks to come. We got a big matchup in a couple weeks on Sunday night versus the Saints, Thursday night versus the Saints. And so that'll be huge. And the matchup against the Seahawks, we're going to see which one of those teams kind of are going to show up, because neither one of those teams are playing real good. But, and like you said, with Charles Godfrey, going back to that, he has been a Panther for a while. And when he went down last year, everybody was like, oh no, he was going to be, the best player in our secondary. And so he goes down and Robert Lester steps in and plays pretty good. And then I think me and you were both surprised when he didn't make the team coming, Robert Lester didn't make the team coming out of spring training training camp. And then he got signed, and then for some reason before he even saw a game, he got cut again. Well, now after Godfrey has kind of struggled, he messed up the play against Nelson. He didn't cover his side of the field on that big 56-yard touchdown pass. And so that he didn't play good. He got cut. So they bring back Lester. And like you said last week, because we talked about Lester, because we thought he was going to play, this week before he got cut, he's a winner. He knows how to win. He's won 3 national championships at Alabama. So he knows nothing but win. When he was on the Panthers last year, they won. So I think bringing a winner into that locker room, into that secondary, is going to help. Hopefully that young talent will help. I don't know what happened to Godfrey. I wish him all the best of luck wherever he may go now. But I think it was a good time for us to cut ties with him.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to like the move of bringing back Robert Lester. 3 national championships, playing in that Nick Saban defense. Just a proven winner in the secondary. And plus, I mean, look back at some of the big plays he made last year. Look at the New England game on Monday night. Say what you will about that pass interference call that didn't get called in the end zone on Gronk when Luke was covering him. But who was right there to bat the ball down? It was Robert Lester. And I've been a huge fan of this kid since we signed him as an undrafted free agent last year. So welcome back, Lester. I hope you get up from the practice squad, and thank you for the retweet last night on Twitter. Switching gears a little bit, Peyton Manning did what Peyton Manning does last night or Sunday night against the 49ers, lighting their defense up, breaking Brett Favre's record of 509 or 508 touchdowns, and actually doing that in the first half, which totally blew my mind. I expected Peyton to get the record. I didn't expect him to get 4 touchdowns. The 49ers defense had only given up 2+ touchdowns in a game twice since 2012. And so, it's hard to rule out, Peyton Manning doing that, but he did it. Congratulations, Mr. Manning. As far as passing records go, you are one of the best. According to the numbers, and numbers never lie, you are the best that's ever played the game. So congratulations there. The Broncos are looking like the favorite again in the AFC, right here almost at the midway point. Between the Broncos and the Chargers, you've got to think that the Chargers are going to wind up choking come November, December, like they typically do. And outside of the Chargers, I don't really see anyone in the AFC that can touch the Broncos. Matt, who do you think is the biggest threat to the Broncos in the AFC?
Come playoff time, I still got to go with the Patriots there. I mean, they're not playing their best ball right now. They almost got beat by the Jets. They probably should have got beat by the Jets if it was better game management by Geno Smith and on that last drive. But I just can't count Tom Brady out in the playoffs. I mean, I know that the Broncos beat them last year, but it's just I can't count them out. But like you said, the Chargers. I mean, I think that defense is playing good. Phillip Rivers is playing lights out, best season that he has had, as far as I know, so far. And the Colts as well, Peyton's old team, they're playing well. Andrew Luck is kind of looking like a mini Peyton. He's kind of just doing his thing like Peyton did in Indianapolis. And I would love to see that AFC Championship game where Peyton goes back to the Colts, or it's looking like the Colts may have to go to Denver, but I would love to see it shake out to where Peyton had to go back to Indianapolis for an AFC Championship game just to see the love of the fans there for him. They still have it. They're not bitter in any way because, I mean, they cut him. They're the ones that cut him. So they love him there. That would just be, I think, the funnest game to watch. But like I said, I can't count out Brady. I mean, I know that he's not looking the best. They're not looking the best, and they have some injuries that they need to work out. But it's just hard for me to count him out come playoff time.
Yeah, for sure. Now on to our next story. There were 2 huge collapses in the NFL this past weekend. The first, the Saints had an epic collapse, in my opinion, against the Detroit Lions without Megatron, by the way, who I picked to win it last week. But anyways, they had an epic collapse, giving up 2 touchdown passes to Stafford in the last 3 minutes and 38 seconds, which ultimately led to the Lions winning. And then you had the Texans, who got off to a furious start. They came out the gates on fire. It looked, J.J. Watt had a fumble recovery in the first quarter. It just looked like they were going to roll with it. And then the second quarter came. They gave up 24 points in less than 3 minutes. Matt, which of these collapses to you was the more surprising turn of events?
Well, I picked the Steelers to win Monday night, and I picked the Saints to win against the Lions. So you would think I would say the Saints collapse. But just the way that the Houston collapse happened, Pittsburgh scoring 3 times in under 3 minutes. The Houston Texans turning it over twice in that span inside their 5, and then they threw a pick. And so it's just the way that happened, the way that, like you said, they had the crowd completely out of it. If you can take the crowd out of it in Pittsburgh, you're doing good. And so they had the crowd completely out of it, and then in a span of 2 minutes and 54 seconds, they were right back in it, up, 21-13, and that's what lost them the game. I mean, obviously that's what lost them the game. But I do like what their coach O'Brien said after the game. They were asking him all these questions, how the media does, pestering him. And he said, look, you can say all you want to about the mistakes we made, and we did make mistakes, and we have to correct those mistakes. But after all those mistakes we made, I have to tell my team, even after all that, after the 3 turnovers in 3 minutes, after giving up all those touchdowns, after blowing the lead, we were an onside kick away from having a chance to tie the game, in an onside kick that we should have probably gotten. That's a good way to look at it. You had to tell your team. He said, we're a few mistakes away, if we get those fixed, to being a pretty decent team, and maybe being able to challenge a team like the Colts in their division. So you got to take the positive out of it if you're them, and I think he did a good job of that. But definitely just the way that the Houston collapse happened was just kind of a shock, because you go get you something to drink and it's 13-0, you come back and it's 21-13, and so just the way that happened, and obviously the Saints the Saints collapse worked out good for our hometown Panthers, but and that was surprising too, but I just got to go with the Pittsburgh there.
Yeah, I can see that, but here's the thing. Houston's not a very good team. And they're 3-4 in the NFC South. Yeah, they've been competitive, or the AFC South, but yeah, they've been competitive in some games. But they're a sub 500 team. And when you're a team like the Steelers, who are constantly a playoff contender, won a couple Super Bowls, you've got to go in and dominate those games. So the way it happened, okay, yeah, that's surprising. But to me, the bigger surprise, and maybe this is one of the biggest surprise of the season, is just the Saints, man. I mean, typically, if you've got a lead in the fourth quarter, a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter, that is, with Drew Brees at the helm, you got to give me that all day. I'll take those odds all day long. And, Matthew Stafford didn't have his boy Megatron. In games like this, usually in the past, the Lions lost these games. And you're kind of watching the Lions grow up right in front of your face. And, Green Bay's getting all the love because they're 5-2, but guess what? These Lions are 5-2 as well. They gave up the Saints defense has always been suspect at best, in my opinion. That's always been a weakness to the Saints. I think they'd have more Super Bowls if they had a better defense. But they give up the 73-yard touchdown pass to Golden Tate. And what followed that to me was what was surprising. Brees comes out and throws an interception. They still have a 7-point lead at that point, or a 6-point lead. It's 23-17, and the interception gives the Lions great field position, and they go down and score and wind up winning 24-23. The Saints sitting at 2-4 is just very surprising to me, because some people had them going like 11-5 or winning the Super Bowl or winning the division, all those things. So to me, it's got to be the Saints' struggles and the way they lost that game. Speaking of a team that's not struggling, that everybody is really surprised about. The Cowboys roll again. DeMarco Murray sets the record for the first player to rush for 100-plus yards in his first 7 games. Very impressive, and I think if they can stay healthy and keep this running game up and keep the ball out of Tony Romo's hands come December, because that's kind of when he starts throwing those interceptions and making poor decisions. If they can just keep that terrible defense off of the field and just run the ball with DeMarco Murray, you gotta like Dallas making a run late into the season. What do you think about that, Matt?
Dallas has probably been the biggest positive shock to me. The biggest shock of a team that's doing well. Everybody. I was watching Mike and Mike earlier this year, and they were making a bet on that one of their producers was a Cowboys fan, and bet he bet them uh, that the Cowboys would go 11-5, at least 11-5. And they were talking about it, and both of the mics were like, we might as well take that bet. There's no way that this Cowboys team with that defense, Tony Romo as quarterback with his struggles, is going 11-5. And now you look at it, they're 6-1, and they could very well end up 11-5. I mean, they would just have to go, 5-4 from this point. So that's very possible. And so I thought that was pretty funny that they had made that bet, thinking there was no way that the Cowboys, and that's kind of how I saw it too. There's no way the Cowboys are going 11-5 or anything close to that. I saw the Cowboys as another 8-8 team who had a chance to go to the playoffs maybe in the last week and didn't. Like you said, they always seem to do that. So, but when you have a running back like DeMarco Murray who's just running lights out, who's had 700-yard games in a row, which is the record, like you said. I mean, you can't never count them out, I guess, but I just think that in the playoffs, I still don't believe in them, and that they're going to have to prove me wrong come December, come January. They're going to have to prove me wrong for me to believe in them, and then they can go 15-1 if they want to. But until they win in the playoffs, till Tony Romo wins in the playoffs, they're going to have some proving to do to me. Now, as the weeks go on, they're proving more and more that they are, a pretty good football team. And they probably will win their division. Not too sold on Philadelphia, what they're doing. They're having some troubles in the locker room, seems like. The Giants, they're just kind of that middle-of-the-road team. And the Redskins, you never know what you're going to get from them. And going to the Redskins, Colt McCoy is going to be starting this Monday night. Me and you both thought that Kirk Cousins, and it's against the Cowboys, me and you both thought Kirk Cousins would come in and steal that job from RG3. He just hasn't done that. Thrown way too many picks in the past few games, and just hasn't been getting wins. And so at halftime of this last game, they decided they were going to just give Colt McCoy a chance. Not many people know much about Colt McCoy because he's been on the bench and been tossed around from NFL team to NFL team, but he was a pretty good quarterback at Texas. He was pretty highly regarded. I think everybody knew he wasn't going to be like the next Peyton Manning or anything, but I thought, when he was coming out that he could be a solid starting quarterback. So he's going to get his chance to kind of show what he can do as a starting quarterback on a big stage on Monday night against the Cowboys. So we'll see what he's got. But going back to Kirk Cousins, where do you think he goes from here? Has he solidified himself as a career backup?
I think he has. Everyone said that this was Kirk Cousins' audition. This was his interview. You've got teams out there that are going to be looking for quarterbacks, and he comes out, he doesn't win a game. He started out hot, and it was kind of the sexy fantasy pick at the time. For if you needed a backup quarterback for your fantasy football team or even a starter in some cases. He burnt me a few times on FanDuel during fantasy football. And, to lose your job to a third string guy, that's Colt McCoy. That, he was good at Texas, but he's undersized. He's inconsistent. He's 6-15 as a starter. With the Browns, but still, he's 6-15 as a starter, and to lose that job, not even to RG3, to me it shows a lot. I think part of the reason that he lost his job is because he was so worried about being Mr. Nice Guy, saying, "Oh, this is Robert's team. When Robert's healthy, I'll come back." If you're a quarterback, you've got to have that edge. And you've got to have it up here where this is my team. You shouldn't have got hurt, bro. And I just don't think he ever had that edge. And so, big ups to Colt McCoy, the former Longhorn. He looked fairly impressive against the Titans on Sunday when they put him in, and I hope to see him do good things, but just it probably won't happen this week. I think Dallas rolls, and becomes the first team to 7 wins. Yeah, Dallas is 6-1, so they'll be the first team to 7 wins in the league. Um, and you've got to like them there. I think Dallas is going to take that division. They've got a fairly easy schedule coming up, just to kind of let you know. They got the Redskins, then they've got Arizona at home, which should be a great game. Arizona's 5-1 right now, leading the NFC West. They go to Jacksonville, back to New York. Then they have the Eagles at home on 11/27. So that's a Thanksgiving Day game. So that should be an interesting game to watch. Eagles Cowboys November 27th. Those games should decide the division. Have they already played once this year?
Oh, I think so.
I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, the you gotta like the Cowboys moving forward, to go from there. So let's talk a little college football, Matt. The ACC was a big weekend for the ACC. Both of our college football playoff brackets are already busted. I guess that's what we get for putting our trust in a Big 12 team with their flashy offense and no defense. And last week we talked about Duke playing Virginia. That was a big game in the Coastal Division, and the Blue Devils just it wasn't pretty, it wasn't flashy, but it was Duke football. Solid defense, running the ball well, and here we are again, 7 games into the season, and Duke's back in first place in the Coastal Division. And for the third straight year, this is the first time this has ever happened in school history, Duke's going to a bowl game. Thinking back to the early 2000s and most of our lifetime, Duke football was a joke and lost to 1AA teams, and it was just the laughing stock of the NCAA. But you've got to think that the job that Dave Cutcliffe has done here is just phenomenal. And Duke's looking like they're going back to Charlotte for another apparent right now rematch with those Seminoles. Matt, how do you think Florida State looked against Notre Dame, and what do you think about Duke football right now?
Well, starting out with the Duke game, like you said, they didn't look perfect. They went through a patch where they looked bad. They looked like they were going to lose, but that team is resilient. They don't give up. They don't, they always fight. They have fight in them, and that's something you didn't see from Duke teams before. And that's why I think you got to give Coach Cutcliffe a lot of credit and say he's maybe one of the best coaches in America, just because, like you said, 6 years ago, you tell me that Duke's 6-1, I'm probably going to say you're crazy, you're living in a fantasy world. And now here we are. They're 6-1. They've been to 2 straight bowl games and looking like they're going to head to a third. Like you said, that'd be the first time in school history. To be able to take a team like that and just turn them into something that they believe that they can win, and that's kind of how Coach K did their basketball team. Before him, they weren't that great. And he comes in and kind of changes the atmosphere. He's even talked to the football team and kind of given his spiel about, you got to change the atmosphere. You got to, do all these things. That when Cutcliffe took over, he said it was the most out of shape team that he's ever seen. That's why they weren't finishing games even when they were up late. And now they're one of the best teams in the country at, coming out in the fourth quarter and playing well. So that's always good. It's just it's fun to watch, fun to see them guys who haven't really got much recognition. And I think a big thing that's also led up to this improvement is a few years back, I think about 5 or 6 years back, they lowered the standards for the football team for admission, and it's still higher than Carolina and Florida State, but it's lower than it used to be, and that helps people that may not have as good grades in high school but are good at football, get in. But and that's one thing I like about Duke student athletes is they're still smart. So they didn't lower it too much, but they did lower it a little bit, and I think that helped. Going on to Florida State, they looked all right. I mean, I think Notre Dame could have very easily won that game. I mean, obviously they had the ball with a chance at the end, and kind of got that call called on them, and just it didn't go their way in that. But I think that they both look pretty good. I mean, I think that they're both top 5 teams, and I think you gotta look at Notre Dame and say they went into, in my opinion, the best team in the country, and they only lost by 4 points. That's a game, I talked about last week. I don't really want to see rematches at SEC. That's a game that I would love to see a rematch of, just to see. Cause I think that Notre Dame kind of feels like it got cheated a little bit on that call, and some other things, and I think they would come out and I think it'd be another good game. So I would love to see that game again. But yeah, I mean, Florida State's gonna roll, or they should roll, on throughout their ACC schedule. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I don't see. I mean, they've already got past Clemson. Like you said, it's looking like they're gonna play somebody like Duke or maybe Miami in the ACC championship game. They should roll there. And but we said it last week against Baylor. We didn't see any team on their schedule to beat them, and they got beat. So you never know. But I don't see any team beating Florida State. And like I said last week, and you said as well, I see them being in the Final Four playoff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Jameis Winston just comes out, silenced everything. Yeah, he had a really slow first half. I think the Notre Dame defense kind of gave Florida State's offense a headache during the first half. But Jameis Winston comes out in the second half and made some adjustments at halftime. And the play that really stood out to me, it was about 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. And this to me shows how smart Jameis is. And the more I watch this kid, say what you will about him off the field, the more I watch Jameis Winston play, the more I'm convinced he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. And here's why. He's got it between the ears. ESPN did a thing on Jameis, a little segment on him, and it was talking about how Jameis, even at a young age, had this notebook, and he was a student of the game. But anyways, the play that I'm telling you about, Notre Dame, Florida State was driving. They were on about the 5-yard line around there. They're about to score. And Florida State lines up, spread out, and Notre Dame's showing blitz. Jameis steps up, makes an audible, runs a hot route to his receiver on the backside on a little slant. He knew by those linebackers stepping up, there's going to be a huge hole right there in the middle of the field, and he checked to that, and it led to his team getting a touchdown in that situation. I don't know what the play call was before. I don't know what he checked to, but just him realizing that coverage and doing that all throughout the second half, making the adjustments when needed. Again, give the man the Heisman. Give the man the Heisman. But I think Florida State should have lost that game. With all that being said, Everett Golston is phenomenal. I think he accounts for about 75% of Notre Dame's offense. It seemed like every time Jameis would score, Golston and Notre Dame would and it looked like Florida State was going to just take the game away. Golston would lead Notre Dame down and they would score. So it was just a phenomenal game. I'd love to see a rematch of that, and I would like to think that if Notre Dame wins out, which I think they have a good shot of winning out, that you've got to put them in the 14 playoff, especially if Florida State's there. And I would love to see that game, that rematch. I think that'd be a ton of fun. And maybe Notre Dame won't get called for a bogus pass interference call at the end of the game. A lot of big games this weekend in college football. What game are you watching this week that everyone needs to look out for?
Just we've talked a lot about Ole Miss and how, a lot of people are picking them as the fancy pick to be one of the Final Four teams. They're undefeated, but they go down to Baton Rouge and they have to play under the lights against LSU. And me and you both know that that's not an easy thing to do, no matter how good or bad LSU is. You go down there, that crowd is going to be rocking. They've been playing well, lately, and they're back in the top 25. And that's the game that I would want if I was picking one game out of the day, other than maybe your favorite team to watch. If you're picking one other game out of the day, watch that one. It's looking like the best game on the schedule to me, and I'm picking the upset there. I think that LSU gets it done. They're young. They're going to rally behind that crowd, and I think that they get it done at home. Last year they had to go to Ole Miss, and they got beat, and that's something that I think they'll remember, and they'll say, we went into their house last year and got beat, so we have to defend our house this year. And it really is kind of a statement game for LSU. I don't think there's any chance of them getting back up into the 4-team playoff with their losses, but it's a statement win for them to say, hey, we're still here. We're still going to be a force in this SEC, even if we don't, challenge to win it. We're still going to be a team that you had to watch out for, a team that you can't just, sleep on. So, and after all that being said, there are only 3-point underdogs in the game, which is kind of surprising. But it's because they're at home under the lights. And I'm picking the upset there, so that's the game that I would watch if I had to pick one.
The game that I'm most interested in seeing, outside of my favorite teams playing, of course, is out. I'm gonna take you out west to a conference that here on the East Coast we don't give a lot of thought to, mainly because their games are played late. But if you're up late Saturday night, turn it over to Fox Sports 1 and watch Utah versus USC. The Trojans are rolling. Cody Kessler, their quarterback, is just absolutely on fire right now. He went off last week. USC's in first place in the Pac-12 South, and they're 4-1. Utah's right behind them at 2-1 in conference play. So it's a huge game between two ranked opponents. USC's looking to beat their second looking for their second win over a ranked opponent on the road in the past 3 weeks. They went to Arizona and beat them after they came off that big win to Oregon. And Utah, they've not been a slouch this year either. They went and beat UCLA, who was ranked number 8 at the time. That was kind of a hot pick at the beginning of the season, and so I think that's going to be a phenomenal game. Look for the Trojans' running game to really be the difference there. Javorius Allen is just running the ball absolutely phenomenal. USC has ran the ball for 200-plus yards in 4 straight games. Guess who the running back was last time that happened, Matt?
I'm guessing Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush. That was the last time that happened, was in 2005. And so when you're running the ball like they did back in those days, and Kessler's passing the ball as well as he is, it's going to be fun to watch. But here's the X factor of this game. Utah's defense is number 2 in their conference. They're only giving up 114 yards a game. So it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be hard-nosed. I like the Trojans. I think they're going to pull it out. I think that Sarkisian's got that program on the right track. So 10 o'clock Saturday night, number 20 USC versus number 19 Utah. I'm going with the Trojans in a like 41-34 type score. I think it's going to be high scoring. So, that's what we need to watch in college football. Last night, I hate to say it, but I think Matt was right during our World Series preview. I myself, even though I picked the Royals to win the World Series, I expected Madison Bumgarner to do what he did last night. He went 7 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run, struck out 5, did what Madison Bumgarner did. But shocking to me, the Giants hung 7 up on the Royals. The biggest question mark for me about this World Series is how will the Royals respond to that defeat? They haven't lost in the playoffs yet. And so I'm anxious to see how they respond to losing in a big way.
I've said it over and over about experience, and I think it won out last night. When Kansas City got down even 1-0, and then got down. Hunter Pence hit that home run, got down 3-0, then eventually it was 7-0, then 7-1. I said it on the last show, and I'll say it again today, that the key to the Giants winning that series is going to be scoring early. They come out and put 3 on the board in the first inning. Now you give Madison Bumgarner, or really most pitchers, that kind of a cushion in the first inning against a team that plays small ball and doesn't, normally hit the ball out of the park, you're going to win that game 9 times out of 10. So like TJ said, it's going to be interesting to see. That was one thing I said last show. The reason I picked the Giants in the sweep is because I didn't think that KC could bounce back and after a loss like that. If they took a loss like that, how would that young team bounce back? So we're going to see tonight. I think tonight will be the turning point of the series. I think if KC can come out and get the win and bounce back, then they might can use that momentum and say, hey, we didn't get down, we got beat, and maybe win it in like 6 or 7. But I think, I'm sticking with my prediction. I think that if the Giants come out and get the first 2 in KC, and I think it's a sweep. I think they go back to San Francisco, and I think that crowd and that experience just wins out. And so I think tonight will tell the story in the World Series, and I'll be excited to watch this game and see how it unfolds. You got the young gun on the mound for KC, the young flamethrower, and you got the old veteran in Jake Peavy on the mound for the Giants, who struggled in the regular season, but in the postseason he's got an ERA under 2, pitching well. And I like how he put it. We talked about Bruce Bochy last time, and I like what he said. He said the reason that people come here and do good where in other places they might have been struggling, because it seems like everybody that comes to the Giants just hits their stride. Michael Morris, Hunter Pence, even he's playing well. Jake Peavy, like we said. He said Bruce Bochy doesn't have a single player that he doesn't believe in. He looks you in the eye and you can tell that he trusts you and that he believes in you. And that helps when you're a struggling pitcher, to know that you have a manager behind you that believes in you, or a struggling hitter or anything. You have a manager behind you and a coaching staff behind you that can believe in you even through your struggles and say, you can do this, you can play well. Jake Peavy used to be one of the best pitchers in the game back when he was with San Diego. And so now he's, I don't think he'll ever be back to that form, but in this playoff, he's kind of pitching back to that form. And I like the Giants again tonight, but we'll see how KC responds.
For sure. I think that Bumgarner was the obvious story. And like I said, for the Giants to win, I think that Bumgarner is going to have to pitch like that for 3 games. And the reason I said that is because I don't trust Jake Peavy tonight. Yordano Ventura coming out just slinging the ball. I think he's too young to realize the the size of this situation. And I think I'm gonna stick with my guns. I think the Royals are gonna get back to streaking. They're a very streaky team. I think they're gonna turn it around. They're gonna respond. They're gonna win tonight, and they're gonna wind up winning the series in 5. I'm gonna go with that. Um, but we'll see for sure. We'll definitely see. All right, now it's time for our Week 8 picks. The TNM Sports Week 8 picks. First off, Panthers host the Seahawks 1 o'clock Sunday. Both coming off of losses. Very frustrating seasons. Panthers are 3-3-1. Hawks are 3-3. Who you like?
Well, it seems like every week I pick the Panthers. Which one I don't pick is the one that wins. So I'm going to go with Seahawks in hopes that the Panthers can pull it out. But no, seriously, I do think the Seahawks will win. But it's on the road, and if we can play better, they can play better, then the Panthers can pull it out. But I'm going to go with Seahawks, and maybe I'll be wrong again.
Russell Wilson has just been lights out his past 2 games. The Monday nighter against Washington, he lit them up for 200 some odd yards and 125 rushing yards. Last week, he became the first player in NFL history to rush for over 100 yards and throw for 300 yards in a game. I like the Seahawks here just because Russell Wilson's the hot hand right now. Chargers, Broncos. Broncos.
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think that they're a good team. I think that Phillip Rivers is wanting to prove that he is in that class. He's not in the class with Peyton Manning, but that he's in that top of the line quarterback class. And I don't know. I kind of see the Broncos offense struggling. They're kind of on that high of breaking the record, and I see the Chargers winning that game. So next you got the Lions and the Falcons. Now, if you watched the show last week, or if you listened to the show, I picked the Falcons to win. They did not. I picked the Lions to lose. They did not. So I'm going to have to go with the Lions over the Falcons here. I don't think that, that Falcons defense can hold the Lions back, and I definitely don't think that the Falcons offense, the way they're playing right now, is going to do too much to that defense. I see Matt Ryan going down a lot. They've had some injuries at the offensive line, so I see Matt Ryan going down a lot, and I'm going to go with the Lions there.
Yeah, I like the Lions. That defensive line is just carrying that team right now, so I think the Lions improved to 6-2. Vikings, Bucks.
Oh, that's kind of picking the worst for the worst, right? I'll go with the Bucks there. I don't know, just because they both are terrible. So I'll go with the Bucks, and maybe you never know.
I like Minnesota, man. I'm riding this Teddy Bridgewater bandwagon, so I'm going with the Rook. I'm going with Minnesota. Ravens, Bengals in a battle for first place. I'm gonna ride with the hot hand. Flacco's been playing great. I'm going with the Ravens, and Steve Smith has another 75, 80-yard game and a touchdown.
Well, I like the Bengals here. It's looking like they're probably gonna get their boy AJ Green back, and I think that he helps them will the victory. They need to get a win, and I think they do that.
Colts, Steelers. I'm riding with the quarterback again. I'm going with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis to stay hot.
Yeah, Andrew Luck's just too good for that team. They're not the Houston Texans. You get down to the Colts, then you're going to lose that game. And the Steelers, like I've said before, they are not consistent. And so, they were coming off a loss. So I picked them to win last week, and they won. So now they're coming off a win. So I'm going to pick them to lose this week against Andrew Luck and the Colts. And the next game we're going to pick is the Packers and the Saints. And I don't know. The Packers look good. But I'm going to go with the Saints to turn it around there. I'm still not convinced they're as bad as they're playing. I'm going to keep picking them. Eventually they'll prove me right. Maybe not this week, but I'll go with the upset there and take the Saints to win maybe a 21-24 type game.
Matt, when are you going to learn? You ride the hot hand. Aaron Rodgers hadn't thrown an interception since week 1. He's thrown 18 touchdowns this year. The Packers are 5-2. Relax and pick the Packers. Packers win big. I don't even think it's close. And the Monday night game. Washington, led by Colt McCoy, makes the drive to Dallas, or the flight to Dallas. Take on the 6-1 Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?
They get the win this week. I don't see it. Them losing to Colt McCoy. That defense ain't that great for the Skins. They lost Brian Arakpo for the year. I think that DeMarco Murray runs for about 130, couple touchdowns. That defense stays on the sidelines. And hey, the defense might look good this week. They're going against Colt McCoy, and like you said, he looked decent last week. But from what I watched, they were, making it pretty simple for him, doing checkdowns and even on that first touchdown pass he threw, it was just a little dump down. It wasn't nothing spectacular. So I got to go with the Cowboys as much as I don't like them to go 7-1 in this situation.
There you have it, folks. Your Week 8 picks from TNM Sports. Matt, how'd your fantasy team do last week?
Well, my ones on NFL.com did good. ESPN, not so good. So I'm gonna stick with NFL.com. I got a team 6-1 on there that's doing pretty well, and I think I'll stick with that one. Try to win me a championship on the NFL.com.
Yeah, I lost a heartbreaker. I was up going into the Sunday night game, and the guy I was playing had Peyton Manning, so I don't really think I need to elaborate on that anymore. Couple other things. If you haven't liked us on Facebook yet, please do. Facebook.com/TNM Sports. If you haven't followed us on Twitter, give us a follow at TNM_sports. And, thank you for listening so much. Thank you for those of you who are listening that have liked us on Facebook. We hit a goal this week of 100 likes on Facebook. I think we're at about 120 now. So please keep sharing TNM Sports with your friends. And thank you again for listening. This has been your third TNM Sports Weekly podcast. We're out.